Mr. Cantu, we do have quorum, so it appears you can go ahead and start the meeting.
Good morning, everyone. This is the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Good morning. Mr. Cunha,
Yes.
Mr. Clark, Ms. Zimmerman, Ms. Brown, Mr. Horall, Ms. Lopes, Mr. Hofdahl, Mr. Fippen.
Mr. Fippen is here.
Thank you. Mr. Savage,
Here.
Mr. Rios, Mr. Backey,
Here.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts, Mr. Sanders, Ms. Deming, Ms. Nebaker, Mr. DeHart, Ms. Holmes,
Here.
Mr. Liba, Ms. Bigby,
Here.
Ms. Agers,
Here.
Mr. Tristo, Ms. Fast,
Here.
Mr. Cryer,
Here.
Ms. Matthews, Mr. Troost, Ms. Evans, Mr. Delgadillo, Mr. Gutierrez, Mr. Cantu,
Here.
Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Smith, Mr. Maderos. Through the chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. Let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's move on to the minutes. Any corrections or additions to the minutes? Anybody in Bakersfield or Fresno or Modesto? Apparently not. So the minutes are approved as submitted.
I do have to call for public comment on the minutes, Mr. Cantu. Are there any
Sorry,
public?
I keep
That's okay.
forgetting that.
It's okay. Thank you. Are there any public comments on the minutes in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield?
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the minutes? Seeing none and none online.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item. Public comments?
Okay. This time is for comments that are not on the agenda. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment at this time? Seeing none and none online.
All right, thank you. And I have no comments as well. Executive Director?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and CAC members. We have quite the full agenda today, so I will mainly just focus on reminding the CAC that we have our upcoming governing board study session in November on the 13th and 14th of November. I just wanted to make sure you mark your calendars for that event. If you can make it down to Visalia, it's going to be hosted in downtown Visalia at the convention center. So it's going to be a really good opportunity for just direct FaceTime with the board and with staff. EPA and CARB are typically at the event as well, along with a pretty interesting, there's a kind of a draft agenda that the board discussed at the recent September board meeting that is available on our posted agenda for that board meeting, which I'm happy to share here with the CSE members, but it's everything ranging from hydrogen and you know, kind of where the state is on developing hydrogen infrastructure through the arches and other kind of related efforts, to wildfire mitigation strategy, to ongoing community engagement efforts. You know, quite a bit of items on that agenda, and hopefully we can have participation by CSE members that are able to make it for that board meeting. So please keep your eyes open for that, and wanted to kind of defer time back to covering the items on the agenda. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. November, I'm sorry, repeat, November 13th and 14th typically starts at 11 a.m. On the 13th. So there's some time for travel, and then ends by mid to late afternoon on the 14th, which is a Thursday. And any other kind of logistical details that, you know, I'm happy to just chat offline if anybody's interested in just a little bit more on just, you know, there's I'm assuming most can kind of make it there, you know, without having, there is overnight, you know, capabilities to the hotel there and all that. So we're happy to share more information on that if needed.
All right, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is update report from CARB. Laura? There she is.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and CAC members. This is Laura Carr. I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB in the Air Quality Planning and Science Division. And as you'll see in your agenda packets, the CARB board did not hold a hearing last month, so I do not have an update for you today. That's it. Thank you.
Well, that was too short. Kind of stretch it out a little bit. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is the update on the attainment plans and rules. Emily. Or is that Emily?
Yeah, while Emily works her way up here, the other thing that I should have mentioned, I meant to mention, but I'm sorry, I'm still warming up here, is that the next board meeting is that study session. So we are not having an October board meeting due to quorum issues. And so just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of that as well. And we'll talk about that later in the item related to the volunteering to present the report. That the next meeting for that is actually going to be our December meeting, due to this not having an October meeting, not having an item on that at the November study session, and having that item be at the December meeting. So just wanted to make sure you were all aware of the October meeting not being on the calendar for the board.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Manuel here. Thank you. Samir, on the 13th and 14th for the study agency, being that we are going to have a new mandate, national standard, the 9 microgram, is going to be time in your agenda for the study agency presentation of how the study agency, the San Joaquin Valley Study Agency's importance to the research that's going to be needed to deal with the new microgram. Is that going to be included in that 2-day to where you guys and our ARB / really the San Joaquin Valley Study Agency will do a presentation? Do you know? Or
Yeah, I think, well, just to clarify, so it's a study session, so it's a board meeting. And I don't think that's, you know, just it's a study agency meeting, but I think what you're asking is whether there's an item on the agenda solely dedicated to talking about the role of the study agency and supporting the science maybe needed to develop the standard. There was not a specific item on that at that meeting, but it is definitely something, as you know, Manuel, that we've talked about having, you know, there's many board meetings where we're going to definitely be talking about that issue. And especially we actually have study agency meetings as well that are regularly scheduled throughout the year, where I think that's going to be a big topic for the study agency itself to have that discussion. So, which is a separate agency, by the way, from the governing board. And so we're not actually having a study agency meeting at the
No.
November meeting. It's a governing board meeting. But I'll just say that embedded within many of the items that are going to be discussed, whether it's the wildfire issues, whether it's the hydrogen and other infrastructure, whether it's the ag burn phase out. There's a lot of elements to the science that's going to be needed to support these, and so it's actually going to be embedded into many of the discussions that are going to be happening there. So I would definitely encourage good participation by stakeholders, whether they're in the ag sector, whether they're in the public sector, other sectors, so that when we have these discussions around how all these different things, kind of come together to help us with our challenges, that, we do get those voices in the room to support the science. So it will be embedded. There's just not a dedicated item on that particular issue. I do think in the next few months, though, that I would suspect that we're going to be wanting to have some really good kickoff discussions on the research priorities. Where does the study agency go on supporting the research? Where do we get the funding to support that research? Which I know that you've been a big advocate for in the past, and it's hard to do that level of research without another round of funding, of course, tied to good priorities. So that's going to be a big ongoing discussion that I think is definitely going to be taken off on specific items, but I think as a whole also when we convene the study agency on that issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Samir.
Through the chair, before Emily presents, I just wanted to put on record that Mr. Tristo and Mr. O'Brien have joined the meeting. And also, I'm sorry, I failed to introduce, we do have a new alternate member in Bakersfield today, Mr. Ian Backey. He is the industry ag alternate to Mr. Rios. So, thank you.
Okay, Emily.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chair and your board. Emily Nealon, Director of Air Quality Planning here at the district, to provide an update to you on some of our plan and rule development efforts. Two main updates for you today. The first is some really great news that EPA has signed their final action to approve our PM 2.5 contingency measure SIP revision, which has been in the works for a number of years. So that is anticipated to be published in the Federal Register within the next few weeks. And then my second update for you this morning is at the last CAC meeting, your board expressed a lot of interest in our ag burn phase out and our upcoming report. As you know, in 2021, we adopted a strategy for the near complete phase out of ag burning by the end of 2025, by 2025. So by the end of this year, as required under SB 705. And through our past evaluation in 2021, based on feasibility issues and a lack of alternatives, our strategy has continued to allow the burning of certain diseased crops and other materials. And so through our new evaluation that we've put together, we're not recommending any additional restrictions. And we will be recommending to CARB to continue allowing burning of these limited materials beyond 2025 due to ongoing feasibility issues and a lack of alternatives, which includes limited amounts of rice straw burning, which has the potential risk for disease crops and materials, and weeds affecting ponding and levee banks. So as part of this report, I wanted to mention we'll also be advocating for additional funding for our successful program, as well as supporting the development of new alternatives in the coming years. And we plan to transmit our recommendations to CARB later this month for CARB to review and provide their concurrence on by the end of the year. So you guys had expressed some interest on that at the last meeting, so I just wanted to come and provide you an update. And that concludes all of my updates for this morning, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions in Modesto?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Emily, for the update. Are you expecting any pushback from CARB on the modifications to the continuation of the equipment or the material allowed to be burned?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We have been coordinating with CARB on our efforts, and they're aware of the recommendations that we'll be sending over to them. And at this point, there's not been any pushback or concern on the CARB level.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions in Fresno?
I have only one question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Manuel. Emily, on the submittal to the Federal Register from EPA on our plan, was there any comment made by Region 9 at all of what was submitted by ARB?
So this particular action is for PM 2.5 contingency measures. This
Oh,
is
the
not
con-
for our most recent PM 2.5 plan. So this is just their final approval, which they had previously proposed approval last year in December timeframe. So this is just finalizing that contingency measure approval for the 1997, 2006, and 2012 PM 2.5 standards.
They didn't make any comment about the contingencies. Was there any comment made by Region 9 at all about what was being submitted? Do you know, or?
I can, let me give that a shot too, just a little bit more context too. So when it went out for proposal at the end of last year, it opened that proposed approval to comments. And so there were, some comments that were submitted. I think in finalizing their action, EPA would, and by the way, the document actually has not published. We're just aware that they signed the approval. When it does publish, it'll be something we can all take a look at. I would imagine that there's responses to the various comments that were submitted that would be a part of that final action. So, we can't really speak to exactly what's in the final document, but what we do know though, is that it is a final approval. Which is good news in that it basically, and we would be the first region in the country that under the latest frameworks for contingency have been able to successfully pull together a package that is finally approved by EPA. So just wanted to kind of acknowledge that effort here in the region of being able to do that. But yeah, we'll see how the actual final package looks once it actually publishes in the register.
Great, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Samir.
Any comments in Bakersfield? Okay, thank you. Move on to item 10. Consider recommendations from CAC Subcommittee Hearing Board appointments.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Shiraz Gill, one of the Deputy APCOs here. As you know, one of the roles of the CAC is when we have vacancies in our state mandated hearing boards for the CAC to provide the recommendation to the governing board on potential applicants to fill those vacancies. At the May 7th meeting, an ad hoc committee was created to vet the candidates for the 2 vacancies that we have in the Central Region Hearing Board, an alternate medical member and an alternate public member. Interviews have been had with those applicants, and before you in your packet is the recommendations being made by the subcommittee. So in front of the CAC is to confirm the recommendations made by the ad hoc subcommittee and forward those recommendations to the governing board for their final consideration. With that, I will turn it over to the chair or one of the other ad hoc subcommittee members if they wanted to share any of their perspectives.
Any ad hoc committee members? I think I'm the only one here. You're here. You have any comments? No comments? Anybody else?
Yeah, the recommendations are in your packet, and I can tell you who those are. It's Dr. Melissa Messias Rioseca from the Central Region Medical Member as the Central Regional Medical Member alternate, and Jessica Pearl is a Central Region Public Member alternate. So those are the 2 recommendations made by the CAC subcommittee.
Through the
All right.
chair. I apologize. We did not print those in the Fresno office. It was part of the agenda packet that was sent out on Friday.
Right,
I
okay.
reviewed it and I'm sure everybody else did, but we don't have copies of it, but you've read it. So to that extent, it's fine.
In your packet that was sent
just not
out.
printed.
Yeah, right.
It is.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, this is an action item. So we need a vote,
Excuse me.
need a motion, a second, and a
Through the
vote.
chair, I move to accept the recommendations of the ad hoc committee for the hearing board members.
Emmanuel, I will move to second the motion.
All right, we need roll call.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to call for public comments also. Are there any public comments in Modesto on this item?
Yeah, no.
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Any public comments in Bakersfield on this item?
No public comment in Bakersfield, but I would like to note that Les Clark has joined the meeting.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Clark. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none and none online, I will call for roll. Mr. Cunha,
Yes.
Mr. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Fippen, Mr. Savage,
Yes.
Mr. Becky,
Yes.
Miss Austin Tibbetts,
Yes.
Miss Deming,
Yes.
Miss Holmes,
Yes.
Miss Bigby,
Yes.
Miss Agers,
Yes.
Mr. Tristo,
Yes.
Miss Fast,
Yes.
Mr. Crier,
Yes.
Miss Matthews,
Yes.
Mr. Cantu,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Maderos.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, I understand on the next item, the state's gonna buy me a new truck.
I'd like
Go
to
ahead, Brian.
introduce, Mr. Chair, yes, actually, that is a possibility. But I'd like to introduce Brian Dodds, who's a program manager that oversees the district's award-winning clarification, not dive clean in the San Joaquin, drive clean in the San Joaquin passenger vehicle replacement program. I wanted to take the bullet on that one just through my introduction to kind of make it easier for Brian to kind of, and I'm just going to do this. I'm going to take his clicker and we're just moving on past that title slide. So let's get this going here.
Thank you, Samir. It's important to dive clean too. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's my pleasure to be here with you this morning. As you are aware, reducing mobile source emissions is a key strategy to meet our federal air quality standards, and the district's voluntary incentive programs play a key role in reducing mobile source emissions. The district's Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program provides Valley residents for reducing emissions from passenger vehicles through our repair, replace, and rebate programs. And our repair and replacement programs in particular have a focus on reaching low-income residents in traditionally underserved communities throughout the valley. These low-income and priority population residents are most impacted by emissions from older vehicles and the associated fuel costs. In 2014, the district launched our groundbreaking vehicle replacement program, which ultimately served as a model for what has become the state's Clean Cars for All program. And we continue to be a leader in program implementation throughout the state. Since 2015, the district has received over $92 million in state funding to operate our vehicle replacement program, and that's resulted in the replacement of over 6,700 vehicles with primarily electric and plug-in hybrid replacement vehicles. Incentives in this program are available up to $12,000 for Valley residents, and it depends on the income level of the participant, whether or not they live in a disadvantaged community, and the type of vehicle replacement or vehicle that is being purchased. Outreach for our replacement program utilizes a grassroots, community-driven approach to reaching low-income and underserved community residents throughout the valley. Weeknight community-based events are held at local businesses or public spaces and serve as a great opportunity to engage community residents about the program and assist with their applications. These weeknight community events have been held throughout the valley, and since relaunching the program last October, there have been well over 100 weeknight events which have connected with residents in small and large communities. These events have proven to be extremely effective in reaching and engaging residents who otherwise may not have participated in these types of programs. In addition, we have utilized partnerships with community-based organizations to communicate program information through their existing networks and social media to conduct localized outreach to connect with residents. This approach to program outreach has resulted in very high levels of participation throughout the district's disadvantaged communities, with more than 98% of the valley's disadvantaged communities having participated in the vehicle replacement and repair programs. The results of the outreach strategy have proven to be very effective in reaching underserved communities and assisting in their transition to cleaner transportation options. A UCLA Luskin Center for Innovation report highlights the district's ability to reach residents in underserved community. And it stated that efforts of the district appear largely focused on reaching low-income communities and communities of color through a variety of outreach approaches while still attaining emission reductions. Over the last year, the district has seen a very high demand from Valley residents for this program, and we've generally been oversubscribed for funding. So we have more applicants than we would have available funding. And based on this current demand, CARB recently allocated an additional 14 million in program funds to the district. This will provide about 11.2 million in funding for vehicle purchases and $2.8 million in program administration costs. CARB had previously held $14 million in a reserve that was intended to meet the demand for the program across the state. We were allocated that entire $14 million reserve based on our program demand and program success. This additional funding can support an additional about 1,000 vehicle replacement projects, and it'll be implemented with Valley Can, who is our program partner. They're responsible for several tasks, including management and oversight of applications, outreach, assisting applicants throughout the process, coordinating the vehicle purchase, and reporting program information back to the district. And these are just a few samples of our replacement program participants, and it's always great to see kind of the end result and the new vehicles that they end up purchasing through this program. In order to participate in the program, participants must meet program eligibility criteria, which includes program income limits. Of course, they must have a valid California driver's license. They must be the owner of the vehicle, provide documentation that the vehicle has been in use over the previous 2 years, and that they are a resident within the boundaries of our district. Participants can either apply through one of our weeknight vehicle replacement clinics, which are held throughout the Valley, or through the district's online application form. In addition, district staff as well as Valley Can staff are readily available to assist program participants with any questions or assistance that they may need. We have a quick video that we'll show about our program, and then we'll return it to your committee. It is very quick. James is getting that all set up for us for a second. Well, if they're a hybrid or plug-in hybrid or battery electric. Thank you, James.
Mi nombre es Bernabé Humberto Ibarra Ríos. Soy de Hanford, California. Me voy con mi nuevo carro 2024 Toyota Corolla Hybrid. Muchas personas tienen la incertidumbre o no creen que si puedan calificar o que sea real que te dan ese dinero para aplicar para un vehículo. Y sí, sí es cierto. Créanlo, a mí ya me está funcionando y yo lo veo para un futuro mejor para todos.
James. So that will conclude my presentation. I think that video speaks really well to the needs and demand of the program, and I appreciate our OC department for putting that together.
All right.
If just one moment, if he's speaking in Spanish, why isn't it in English below instead of Spanish? You follow what I'm saying?
Subtitle.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that's a good question. And that particular ad was specifically designed for a Spanish language audience. We try to do outreach in a number of different languages and approaches. This was just kind of one sample of what we have available to outreach to the community.
Another quick comment. Mr. Chair, if I could, I wanted to actually give a closing comment before you open it up to the CAC, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The reason we wanted to bring this item to you is because we've been really successful at, as you heard from Brian, at really fighting for, we're leading the state in fighting for significant resources. We just got the 14 million, kind of cleaned up all the reserves based on demand and the success that we're having here. So it's really important that we keep getting the word out about this program into communities that you may work with. Wanted to make sure you were sharing this information. If you had any questions or ideas for outreach, we're obviously taking those as well. So we can keep growing it and keep fighting for those resources. There's going to be a new budget year coming up. So that conversation continues as to what we might see in that new budget. And to your question, Dennis, just wanted that was closed captioning, for that particular Spanish version, so not dissimilar to what you might see, English CC on a English message, but we have all that same outreach available in English. We just happen to share the Spanish version with you all this morning, but there's some great tools out there, a lot of third-party verification of the success of the program. And as the vehicle fleets as the vehicle offerings become, more and more available on the hybrid, plug-in hybrid and all electric, and whether it's new or used markets are growing, you're seeing a lot of pickup from Valley residents in this program. Just a lot of excitement out there to be able to get out of these old clunkers and basically get into a more efficient vehicle. So anyway, just wanted to make sure that the CAC was fully empowered and aware of this effort, and whatever you could do to share that out to the community. Or if you have ideas, it's a constantly evolving program. And that's something that Brian and his team have been really, part of the success of the program has been that we do keep going back and making changes and then getting the state to change their statewide program, which we actually locally developed here. Many years ago, actually, we developed the pilot here that led to the state, basically taking that and going statewide. So I want to acknowledge, and the CSC has been there all along the way, by the way, helping develop this program. I know a lot of ownership and pride goes into what we've been able to do here. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair and members, for any comments or suggestions.
Brian, I had a question. On your presentation here, it indicates repair, replace, and rebate. Are most of the vehicles new? Is there a percentage that would be repaired instead of new?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, great question. So our Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program does have 3 different options. The one that we discussed today is primarily our replacement program. Residents who go through that program can purchase either new or used vehicles, primarily because of the high cost of battery electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles. Right now, we see a lot of used vehicles that are purchased by residents, but some are purchasing new vehicles. The important thing that we try and assist with is that the vehicle that they purchase needs to meet their needs. And that might be financial needs, it might be ability to get to and from work or their kids to and from school. So we make sure that that vehicle meets their needs. Separate from the replacement program, there is a rebate program that provides all Valley residents up to $3,000 for the purchase or lease of an electric vehicle. And then separate from that is our repair program, where we have weekend events throughout the Valley where people can go and get their vehicles tested. If they're in need of emissions related repairs, we do provide vouchers that they can go to a participating smog shop and have their vehicle repaired. So really the idea across the Drive Clean in the San Joaquin program is that a variety of options that Valley residents can utilize in order to help reduce emissions from their vehicles.
Wow, it's a great program.
Mr. Chair, one last question, if I may. What steps are being taken in regard to this overall program or something similar to enable them to have like the infrastructure, the charging and the education as it relates to that, so that they realize there's a certain amount of what I have 2 children that have electric vehicles, and there's a certain amount of inconvenience that goes along with that. And what steps are being taken to help assist in that regard in these communities?
Yeah, a great question. So through our vehicle replacement process, as we're helping people kind of look at which vehicle options might work for them, that's one of the questions and one of the discussion items that our ValleyCan team has with participants to ensure that there's charging available, whether that's at home or at workplace charging, to support that type of vehicle. If they don't have access to that, then a fully electric car is probably not their best option. So we provide some assistance just educational wise through that process. In addition, our grants program, we have a Charge Up program, which provides incentives to businesses, public agencies, to install charging infrastructure throughout the valley. And through that program, we've supported millions of dollars of new charging stations throughout the valley to help support more workplace charging, more charging at businesses, so that as people purchase and deploy more electric vehicles, that the charging part of it is less of an issue, and constantly looking for new opportunities to install that charging infrastructure.
I'd be interested in getting more information as it relates to the businesses and government working together to provide new charging stations. I mean, we have some places that would be perfect for that type of thing in the Tulare area, and I'd love to have that because we have an outlet mall in Tulare that has no charging stations, and that to me makes no sense. So I'd like to work with that in that regard.
Yeah, we'll follow up with
If
you
you could
on that.
provide it
And
to
we'll
me.
also, just as an action item, we'll share the Charge Up grant program information with all the members, but we'll specifically also reach out to see what, if anybody else has any interest, similar interests, we're happy to have that conversation to see what we can do to work
Fantastic.
together on that.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Mr. O'Brien.
You answered my first part of the question just now. The second part is, we're getting to the end life of a lot of the batteries. Is there intended to be a battery replacement and disposal through the Air Board, or is that from some other organization?
Yeah, that is another really great question. So currently the state is looking at various incentive programs and opportunities for replacing older batteries. As you've mentioned, some of these first generation cars certainly coming to the end of their battery life, and that's one thing that we do need to be concerned with. So I think there's a statewide effort to kind of try and tackle that issue, particularly for, well, I think in general for residents throughout the state, but also for lower income residents who may not be able to absorb the cost of replacing those batteries as easily. But that is certainly an issue that is being examined at a statewide level. At this point, we don't have a specific incentive program available, but I think that as CARB looks at that issue and develops resources and guidance, that could be something that's available in the future.
Is there a framework at all for anyone to dispose of and replace? I mean, it seems like it's haphazard right now.
Yeah, there's maybe if I could take, there's a broader question, I think, Mr. O'Brien, that you're raising, which is, how do we deal as a state with the life cycle of, when you have a lot of these vehicles that are getting older now, what happens to them, the batteries, for example, in the waste stream, and and just to answer your question directly, I mean, we certainly don't have any sort of incentive or we're not involved in the waste side of the, although I know that that they're absolutely, my understanding is that the state through kind of the waste management side of things is working with whatever they, all the various waste streams to figure out exactly how these vehicles are ultimately going to be disposed of, because everything does eventually come to an end if there's, one fact of life. And so, Brian was kind of talking to the user experience, but I think you're partially, if I understand your question correctly, also speaking to what happens to the batteries and all the ultimately in the waste side of it. And it's a big question, and it's a very good question. And I do know that there's some waste related efforts that are going on. We're just not a part of that. I think, although we're certainly interested in making sure, I mean, if you don't have solutions on that side, it does introduce a major complexity, right, as the state transitions to electric vehicles. So we're definitely interested in really more from the perspective of making sure that everything is being thought through in a thoughtful manner as these transitions happen. And so we're keeping an eye on that, but we're definitely not, we don't operate waste facilities or incentivize, I mean, there's a whole other world of waste management that I know you're probably at least in some level involved in, having had a lot of municipal kind of experience, but that's only getting more complicated, as I'm sure everybody here knows, with other mandates that are happening in the waste management world of things. But this is just another factor in that side of the state's kind of strategy development. And we're happy to keep an eye on that, and maybe you can report back at some point in the future, on how that's looking.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Bakersfield?
Ian Baki, I got two questions real quick. For the repair portion of this incentive, how long does it take? So we do the pop-up, and I've seen that quite frequently for repairs, or if somebody takes their vehicle to a shop when it needs to be smogged. How long does it take for their funding to arrive in order for them to not have hindrance with the DMV due to the fact that those are just lovely people to deal with? But how long does it take from application to approval process to know that they're going to get that voucher, grant, coupon to get their vehicle repaired?
Sure. Thank you for the question. And so through the repair program, they're issued vouchers to go to participating smog shops. They can make those appointments following an event really quickly within, in most cases, days or a few weeks. Once their vehicles are repaired, the smog shops submit reimbursement to us, and we pay the smog shops directly. So the applicant doesn't necessarily need to be out of pocket any funding unless their repairs exceed the total voucher amount. And so it can happen very quickly, and we reimburse the smog shops within a few weeks of them submitting the claims back to us.
So just to be clear about that, the individual that has the vehicle, owns the vehicle, they're going to have to apply for your voucher, correct?
Either attend one of the weekend events and have their car tested. If it fails that screening, then they're issued a voucher on the spot. If they call Valley Can directly, they're directed to a smog shop. We make an appointment, and if their car fails a smog test at the smog shop, they're eligible for further emission repairs on the spot.
Outstanding. That was pretty clear on that side. And then, for qualifications, income verification, can you talk to us about the income that is necessary or the threshold that you're looking for on income verification?
Yeah, absolutely. So through the state program, they require that participants for a replacement program be less than or equal to 300% of the federal poverty level. For reference, for a family of four, that's $93,000 or so. For each additional dependent there, it increases by about $16,000. So we look at family size and total income to determine if they're eligible. But it, like I said, family of four, $93,000. It's fairly expansive there.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments in Fresno?
Yeah, this manual, thank you. First is, I want to commend your team. I want to commend the event that I attended in Merced, where I think there was over 200, and it was the last day of the money they would give you, and then it sat there. And we still had needs and needs. I appreciate the $14 million, the entire amount from ARB. But it's a program that really shows a need. And to help the communities, 93,000 is a little high for a family of four, where one may be a provider. And if he or she works for various industries, even with the $20 an hour to $18, $16 an hour, pretty hard for them to get there. But the discussion first is, you have one heck of a program. I want to commend you, Ryan, the entire staff. Everybody has done a great job, and the board in the allocations. Definitely more money is needed. This is my comment, not CAC. Take it from the damn high-speed rail. Okay? And give 200 or 300 million and have it to where I appreciate a hybrid gas and electric combinations, because many of our farm workers in our fields don't have charging stations, and we will not put them in. If we have a crisis stealing pump wire and pumps, could you imagine what our charging stations would look like on the flea market? So I believe that hybrid concept of having gas and electric, I appreciate the used concept because of the insurance for a brand new car is extremely, and today auto insurance is very hard to get, and especially for electric. So I think we as a CAC maybe need to someday, Samir, draft a letter of tremendous support coming from the CA for more funds to this next round of negotiations. But I think we need to be on early on and ask for a lot more money. And I know they have a reserve in Sacramento. I know that. But again, the questions I have is about the battery storage. We've done all of these great modernization of all electric. The new hybrid Tesla pickup, what do you call that thing? The ugly truck, or I don't know what it is. This is me. I don't know what it is, but I followed it very carefully in the manufacturing, only for one reason, was that the battery was 1,900 pounds. The battery has to go to a repair shop where the chassis is removed from the battery. What do you do with a 1,900 pound battery? I don't want it dumped in our fields. I don't want it dumped alongside of a road. But I think I have a greater question. We've had two major fires, one in the north on a big rig up on I-80, on the west side of I-80. We've had a huge one down going to Vegas, a 2-day shutdown of the entire freeway because of toxicities coming from these batteries. I think we need to have some answers. We can go ahead and keep giving the money, but it's time to replace the battery. Where is it going to go for this air district to worry about where it's stored? We think a forest fire is bad, but if now you've got 1,000 cars that have replaceable batteries and they're going to go into some storage yard, can they still catch fire? I don't know. I just know that a Tesla battery in a big rig that weighs 9,000 pounds has to be buried if it catches fire. It has to be buried. So I think that's a great question that was asked. I think we need to have answers for that from ARB. It's great to give all the money out, but why should a citizen or a person of low income now have to try to buy that battery that could cost $25,000 maybe for a car that costs $20,000? So that's a great question that I have and that has been spoken. So I think we need to have some of those answers. And I mean real answers, not materialistic to say, oh, well, we're looking and no. We need to have a plan. Being that we created the program, and now we need to advance to CARB and tell CARB, what is your solution? Because CARB is great for having the entire country, the entire state of California, all electric by 2035. With 19 million DMV licenses, everybody probably owns cars and trucks. Where are those batteries going to go? Are they going to be stored in the San Joaquin Valley? Put on our farmland.
Isn't Tesla moving to Texas? You just send them to Texas.
I would not have a problem with that. But I think Samir, and I think on the staff and everybody, you've done one hell of a job. But we have some issues, and our farm workers cannot drive an electric car to work every day. It's not going to happen because they move from fields to fields. Our farms just don't sit like a Bank of America or like a military base. We've got 4 million acres in this valley, and we drive all over the place. The workers do 70 up to 75 miles, up to 20 miles, 30 miles a day. So I think we really need to look at this carefully. But what I saw the people in Merced, you did them such a great favor of helping them get out of their car that they couldn't repair anymore. And Jamie Holt's famous car tune-up program is the best in the world, where you help deal with our friendly DMV. That I think you guys have done guys and gals have done one heck of a job. So that's my little dissertation, but I am greatly concerned about the cost of what a normal family and then the cost. Thanks.
Thank you, Manuel. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to item 12. Public comment?
No, we don't need, not on the discussion items, only on action items.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to introduce a couple of folks that are going to come up here to give an update on or actually talk about the winter residential wood smoke reduction strategy. So it's October 1st in actually exactly a month. We'll be once again in the official winter season. We'll see what the temperatures are. It feels nothing like we're anywhere heading towards winter at this point, but we'll see. But basically, we operate, as you all know, a comprehensive strategy to keep working with our residents to reduce residential wood smoke emissions. We're about to go into that phase again here. It's multifaceted, so we would like to have a conversation with the CAC about what is in that strategy, and then always with an eye towards if you have any suggestions for outreach or any other components of it. It's a great time to chat about that before we officially kick that off here on November 1st, which is the beginning of that official winter season under our curtailment strategy. So with that, I'll introduce John Clausen and Jamie Holt to walk the CAC through that comprehensive strategy.
All right, thank you, Samir, and good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Samir said, I'm John Clausen. I'm the Director of Air Quality Science, joined by Jamie Holt, Chief Communications Officer, and we'll go ahead and jump into this presentation. So as we know, exposure to wood smoke emissions has an impact on our health. That image we show on the slide here just gives an indication that the smaller the particles are, the deeper they can get into your lungs, they can get into your bloodstream, cause a lot of health damage. A lot of research has been done on this, showing that this exposure to wood smoke emissions can cause lung disease, decrease in lung function for children. Among people, it can cause hypertension, heart disease, cancer, heart failure, and neurological effects have been some recent research. During the wintertime, which we're about to get into once it starts cooling down, wood burning emissions are one of the largest sources of direct PM 2.5 during this time of the year. And during the evenings, when temperature cools down, the atmosphere kind of descends upon itself. Temperature inversions are very common during the winter season here in the valley. And so that really places a lid over the bowl of the valley, trapping that wood burning smoke and those emissions in neighborhoods where people are living and breathing right where they live and reside. So over time, we've implemented a strategy here at the Air District to reduce emissions from residential wood burning. This is one of our most highly cost-effective public health measures that we have across the agency. We've seen big reductions in PM 2.5 over the years from this with a low implementation cost. And like I mentioned, this really helps reduce emissions in neighborhoods where and when it's needed the most, in the evenings during those temperature inversions where people are living. We run this program from November through February of each winter season. That's when the curtailment program is in effect. That's when you see those burn or no burn days, those different curtailment decisions during the winter season. And through these efforts, we've made a lot of clean air milestones over the years because of this and a number of other strategies that we put into place. So this program has helped us attain the PM10 standard many years ago, set at 150 micrograms per meter cubed. It's helped us attain the 24-hour PM 2.5 standard of 65 micrograms. We're making significant progress towards the 15 microgram annual standard. And last year, the entire valley was below that level. And we're hoping by the end of this year, if we continue the good progress, we'll be able to finally attain that standard officially with EPA approving that. And then we're also making progress towards the more recent PM standards, 35 micrograms for 24-hour, 12 micrograms for annual. And then, of course, the latest standard that just came out, the 9 microgram standard, continuing to progress towards that. This last winter season that occurred from 2023 to 24, this was the 5th time we implemented our new strategy, and this incorporated the amendments we made in 2019 to our local rule 4901, where we established lower curtailment thresholds for the hotspot counties of Madera, Fresno, and Kern. The graphic on the left-hand side shows the different curtailment levels that we have in place for the hotspot counties versus the other counties. So you can see on the right-hand side of there, the hotspot counties have lower thresholds set so that we start curtailing wood burning when the PM 2.5 concentrations get to those levels versus the other counties on the left-hand side. With this strategy came public education and incentives, program enhancements, and different requirements in the rule for other situations. Just comparing the air quality of where we used to be versus where we are now. We showed this to our governing board a number of months ago, but this compares where we once were almost 25 years ago. On the left-hand side of this graphic, we're showing the winter season of 1999 to 2000. This was back when we just first started measuring PM 2.5 in the valley. And you can see back in these days, we had much more unhealthy air quality index days. Those are those red days compared to the good days, which are the green color there. This is across all the counties of the valley. This is definitely not where we want to be. We don't want to have more unhealthy than good days during the winter season. Fast forwarding about 25 years on the right-hand side, this was the past winter season. We only had one unhealthy day across all the counties for that winter season, which is great to see that we are really not seeing these high concentration days anymore during the winter where we cross the unhealthy threshold, and the majority of days are in the good category, which was really great to see the progress and just looking where we used to be versus where we are now. Because of the implementation of the strategy and other things that we're working on together, we've seen a lot of progress. The last thing I'll note here before passing to Jamie is as we've continued to implement this program and make it more stringent and more comprehensive, we've continued to see reductions in average concentrations of PM 2.5. In this graphic here, we're showing that those dashed lines are different periods in time when we've amended our rule and our program to make it more stringent. And it's interesting to see that when we look at the average concentration in the winter season before and after we make a rule amendment, we always have seen a lower concentration of PM 2.5, just showing the effectiveness that we feel that our program brings and continuing to reduce emissions of PM 2.5 and continuing to progress towards meeting all of the PM 2.5 health standards. And I'll pass it to Jamie now to give us an overview of our outreach program.
Good morning, everyone. I'm now trifocal, so I've got to move my face to make sure I can see what's happening. This program, and I will mention it's in the item, it is an award-winning program. It was declared to be a best practice in air quality management by the Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies 3 years ago, and really is looked to as the gold standard when it comes to wood smoke emissions from residential homes. And really, I think it's due to the multifaceted nature of the program, the fact that it has the regulatory component, it has a very strong incentive component, it has an outreach component. You can see here, this is a flyer that is for the incentive program, the Fireplace and Wood Stove Changeout Grant Program. There's a variety of different levels there, but really the goal of the incentive program is to give residents money to basically do away with using their wood burning fireplace or stove. And there's a variety of options for folks. They can just decide that they're gonna block up their chimney, put a lid on their chimney, and we'll give them a small amount of money for that, for no longer using their fireplace, or they can brick it up however they wanna do it. If they want to put in a gas insert, we can give them funding for that. If they want to put in an electric heat pump, you hear a lot about electric heat pump these days. There is also an option to put in an electric heat pump. The goal with this program is really to be flexible, to meet folks where they're at, and to get them into the device that really makes the most sense for them for where they might be living. Education, as John mentioned, has always been key to this program, and we have done significant outreach over the past going on 30 years almost, which seems crazy. We really focus on emphasizing those health impacts that are related to wood smoke. Really, that smoke coming out of your chimney, what it's doing is it's coming back into your home. It's impacting you, your family, your pets, or it's going into your neighbor's home. It's impacting them. We also make sure that we warn residents when air pollution is expected to deteriorate and give them information on how they can protect their health, and additional steps that they can take to reduce emissions. We encourage residents to upgrade through our grant program, and then we use a whole variety of outreach avenues that I'm going to talk about in just a minute to get the word out. This advertising, which you'll start to see up in the November months once it's no longer 103 degrees outside, but I'm not bitter about it. We use traditional bilingual advertising on network TV, cable TV, outdoor billboards. We really look to put the billboards in neighborhoods where we know there are older homes that might have wood burning devices. A lot of the newer developments, even going as back as in the last about 10 years, they don't even have wood burning devices. So it's really those older neighborhoods. We use social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and to generate a dialogue. I will tell you, when we first started regulating the use of wood burning fireplaces and stoves back in 2003, some of you will remember, we really had a lot of the members of the public that needed some education about the health impacts and what was going on. And the grant program really helped to get folks to understand that there were really some amazing alternatives out there. The public really understands now the role of this program. They understand that this is the most cost-effective way that we can reduce our wintertime emissions, and that it truly has been successful. So how we do our outreach and the advertising really has changed as well. We do a lot of digital advertising. Not a lot of folks, at least not compared to what it used to be, have cable TV anymore. People are on Hulu, they're on Sling, they're on the myriad of Samsung TV, the myriad of different services that are out there. So we put commercials on those streaming platforms. We also do a lot of search engine marketing. These are things like Google ads. So if someone's going to go in and do a search for, say, fireplace, they're going to get our messaging that says, hey, do you want to upgrade your fireplace to a cleaner device? We'll give you some money for that. We also have a smartphone application that gives folks the daily curtailment status. So it's really easy for folks to see if they still have one of those wood burning devices, the handful of days when they can use it. And then we do a lot of coordination with Valley meteorologists, weather reporters, and reporters in general during the winter months, especially when we have those handful of days when air quality is really poor. This is just a visual of some of our outreach that we do. You'll, as I mentioned, begin to see it here in November. I'm going to show you a few commercials here at the end. In addition to the education, the grant program, we do active compliance support activities, and it's really in an effort to make sure that we're educating the public about our incentive efforts and about what the rule says, but what their options are. Our staff actually goes out and looks for chimneys that might be smoking. We don't knock on doors. We don't go on private property. If we think someone might be burning on a day they're not supposed to, they get a letter from us, they give us a call, and we'll walk them through their options. We have some pretty cool equipment back in our compliance department that allows us to do that in a very hands-off approach. It really is just one more way that we work to increase public awareness and that understanding of why this rule is in place and kind of the path that we've come to get here over the last several years. Looking ahead, as you all have mentioned, we have continuing tough standards ahead, and we are going to be examining potential opportunities for enhancing this strategy overall. We'll be starting that public process in 2025 to look at what those enhancements might be, and we'll make sure that we come back and begin that conversation with you as well once we begin that process. I've got 3 30-second commercials. They're going to run back to back, and James is going to get them going for me right now.
Change out program.
Fireplace has always been a part of my living experience. We love it. We use it daily.
First of all, you're not putting particulates in the air. Second of all, it's clean. Third, it looks nice. The program from start to finish, finding a fireplace insert to getting it installed was quite easy. It just pays to do it.
I'm Connie Young. I'm a retired registered nurse. I found out about a program through the Air District that would provide several $1,000s if I were to disable my fireplace and switch over to a heat pump. The advantage of a heat pump is that it doesn't burn any fossil fuels to run it. And it's extremely efficient. And this is one real simple thing that we can do to improve our air quality and our quality of life in this valley.
Nosotros somos la familia Mendoza y vivimos en Madera, California. El programa realmente es rápido, es muy fácil y pues el beneficio que quema uno limpio, lo usa uno pues casi diario y aparte de eso pues realmente es más rápido en vez de quemar leñas.
Y como vienen mis nietos, pueden jugar cerca y es más segura para ellos.
Como le digo, realmente así podemos contribuir a no contaminar el aire.
With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
We have one.
I had a question. So I noticed for how it works, they're gonna apply for the voucher. Once they have the voucher, it says present approved voucher to a participating retailer. So what does it take to either become a participating retailer? Can they be a contractor? So that would be the question that I have. If there's a list of units that they specifically have to install.
Yeah, hi, this is Samir, and I can take a quick stab at that. I believe our program director is here if he wants to add anything, Todd DeYoung. Yeah, so that list is ever evolving. So it's absolutely open to additional retailers / I'll use the word contractors in there too, because I think it's been a growing list of folks that have to meet some minimum qualifications. Basically, they're an established vendor / somebody who can basically walk a resident through the process of and by the way, would also be aware and acknowledge the voucher. So there's a kind of a programmatic element of, hey, they're trained and are aware and are accepting of the voucher as being issued by the district, and then have the qualifications to be able to walk that resident and ultimately have them, successfully put in one of these devices. And so that it's an open process. We have a number of retailers throughout the valley. It keeps changing as others show interest, or and I think it's only more additive over time. As we continue promoting the program, there's quite a few, for example, up in the northern part of the valley, by the way, that supports the implementation of the program. So if there's any specific question related to that, more than happy to talk offline as well, if you have any ideas on that as well as you take a look at that.
Perfect, thank you.
And Samir, just as a tag onto that, similar to the other program, we do a lot of really good incentive programs. I don't know that each of the CAC members are fully conversant in all of them. If you can send us as much detail as possible, that would help us easily share with our constituents information so they know what's out there and available. I think it could be helpful just as produce a summary document for us. Could be quite useful. Thanks.
That's an excellent idea, and we'll follow up on that. I'll call it a toolkit or something that's basically easily shareable, whether it's like an internal newsletter or social media post or whatever, sort of whatever format might be easiest. We'll try to make that easy for y'all.
Yeah, that'd be great, and include your partners like you were talking about relative to who can actually help implement the programs in the local areas. That's super helpful to us. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments in Bakersfield? Fresno?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple comments. Jamie, John, propane is acceptable, correct? As a gas, right? Okay, I want to make sure again. That's been since 2003. So, okay, great. Number two, on the heat pump, it runs off of electric, correct? Being that our neighbors and our friends, the utility companies, have only charged very minimal per kilowatt this year. People's homes only went from $70 to $500. That was only a modest increase. What is that cost? Do we know what these heat pumps are costing? We're very fortunate because right now the weather at 103 definitely is a savings. But if the utility costs continually go up, like this year, the highest was 51.7 cents per kilowatt from 2 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And it varied after 4 o'clock. It went to on peak, heavy peak use. So I think that's an important issue I would like to know more about is what does that utility cost? Number three, I think is we have too many snake, if I can use the word, salespeople that take tremendous advantage and may be a business, but have garbage equipment. Their service is terrible, et cetera, et cetera. The units they're using, they don't maintain them. But I think that's what Chris asked, of having some type of list of folks that have been working with the district. I don't know if you can do that legally or not, but I think you can. I think will be a tremendous asset. Chris's idea is absolutely a great one that maybe could be online because everybody texts everybody or tweets or whatever the thing is what programs are available that the district has, because you have several of them. And from agricultural tractors to the tune-up program, the wood stove program, all of those. No other district provides as many positive incentives that you have. But if you can have a place that somebody can just say, incentive program summary, the district offers the public, business, and government agencies, right? Or state agencies or county agencies. I think it'd be a tremendous asset. Again, John and Jamie, tremendous program, tremendous assets. Definitely our Hill people have different constraints, and that's why propane is such an important issue for many of those areas. But again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, if I could just quickly respond, just
Yeah, please.
issue after issue on that. Yeah, great questions, great points. Just confirming that propane is an eligible control device for putting it in. You do have to replace a wood burning device, but you can put in a propane device, and in the program, there are different situations in the valley. You've got the urban environment, where you have piped natural gas. You also have, for rural communities or foothill communities so the program is adaptable to different situations. On the heat pumps, it's a complicated question. It's a great question. Heat pumps are definitely more expensive than a traditional, what I'll call an air conditioning or a traditional kind of AC system. On the cooling side of things, a heat pump is generally a lot more efficient, say, than probably the current unit you may have in your home. And so on the cooling side, you're paying for energy kind of one way or the other. And if you were to put in a heat pump, you're probably saving money because you're probably putting in a more efficient unit. It's electrical in either case. And it's really on the heating side during the wintertime where you're going from, say, natural gas or propane to electrical. And that's kind of where, depending on the gas price, where the comparison comes in, gas prices are also up quite a bit. And so as those two prices are, kind of competing as to who's going to be even higher into the future? I think that's kind of the question. Definitely a lot more efficient than an existing natural gas unit. And then I think what happens with a lot of the solar installations is that now you have another, if you happen to have solar, you have another use for that energy. It actually helps you in the wintertime, where in the base situation, you'd be using natural gas instead of, so there's other parts of this where, if you're able to get solar installed, you can actually have some potential benefits and return on that, but there is a higher capital cost. So it's kind of a complicated, sort of set of issues, but there's some new federal tax credits that are also really important to understand when you're looking at, say, doing a heat pump project that are available right now to residents. And so that helps it, kind of shave, some of the capital costs. There are contractors, fortunately, that are able to help residents really understand all of these dynamics. And so the incentive is there. And so it is making sense, though, for in certain situations to consider that. Just to confirm, there is a list of approved vendors. These are contracted vendors, that are committing to participating within the criteria of the program. So that's available. We'll make sure when we send out the information, there's a link to that list. And if you have anybody you think might be interested in being part of that, also let us know. And then lastly, to your point, we'll see if there's a way to make it easier for you all to share this information on our webpage and our grant program page. We've actually broken down our programs by, if you're a resident, here are all the programs. If you're a public agency, here are, if you're a business, or if you're a farmer or even a small farmer, here's all the programs. So there is a list of all these that are available, and they're separated on our webpage by that category. If there's a way to make that even easier in a shareable kind of a document, or similar to what Chris had raised earlier on this specific program, we can look for something that says, hey, here are all these things that are available to you, and here's how you can access them, right? But now the page is available today, but we'll see if there's another handout or something that might make it even easier from a shareability format, as you all may want to share out to anybody that you may want to do that with. So we'll look at that as a suggestion, and hopefully that answers all the questions that you raised, Manuel.
I understand absolutely on the cost, but infrastructure is such an important issue. Wintertime solar doesn't do much because of clouds. If we have tremendous fires, correct, and I appreciate that. So I think all of those issues confront us, but I think the grid is an important issue for us, of our infrastructure, for asking to do all electric cars, all trucks, all appliances. Now, who and what gets hurt at the end, because the infrastructure is not there to suffice all of our needs. It is not, in no shape or form, even by the year 2035. So I think having the flexibility in the program to where you give that individual that opportunity to go with either a gas stove, propane stove, or an electric, or a so-called heat pump discussion of electric, and you still do the pellet stoves, correct? And that's another.
Yeah. So if you're in a rural or foothill / mountain community, we do still fund an old, like an open hearth or uncertified device to a certified pellet stove. You can still do wood to wood in those cases. In an urban environment, say within the city of Fresno, you can only go to propane or electric. We do not fund wood in a piped natural gas environment.
And again, flexibility, I think you've made it very valuable. And so thank you very much, Samir. Thank you, Jamie and John.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 13, AB 617 implementation update. Stephanie?
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Ng. I'm a program manager over our Community Strategies and Resources Department, here to provide you all an update on the implementation of AB 617 since our last CAC meeting. Just by way of background, we continue to meet with all 4 of our CARB selected community steering committees or CSCs to implement AB 617 across the whole valley. Those communities are South Central Fresno, Shafter, Stockton, and Arbor Lamont. A few updates for you all. We are gearing up for an in-person CSC meeting in Shafter in October. As part of this meeting, we plan to discuss progress on a few of our SERP incentive measures, including discussing the benefits of our low dust nut harvester program. We absolutely love these in-person meetings. They're such a great opportunity to get to connect with the community steering committee that we serve with, and the in-person meetings are just a great field, a different field to see people in person via Zoom. So we're really looking forward to this meeting. As part of our vegetative barriers and urban greening program in Fresno, Tree Fresno, who we are contracted with to do these services, is hosting an informational session this week in partnership with OK Produce to seek businesses interested in adding trees to their properties to help our greening efforts in the community. So we think this meeting will definitely yield some great partnerships to increase the number of trees that are planted in our South Central Fresno community. And finally, this is an update that we do bring every year, and I can't believe it's this time already, but we are working on our annual reports on AB 617 implementation with our community steering committees or CSCs, and we plan to take this update to our governing board and the CAC in December. And those are all the updates that we have for the district, and I do believe we also have CARB here. We have Brian Moore joining us for CARB updates.
Hi, thanks, Stephanie. And my name is Brian Moore, and I work in the Office of Community Air Protection at CARB. And I have just one update regarding the Community Air Protection Program from the state level, and it's regarding our Community Air Grant Program. So Community Air Grants are direct grants from CARB to local nonprofits to work on like technical and educational and outreach programs to hopefully improve local air quality. And the 5th cycle of these air grants is open for applications. It closes on November 1st. So that is a big push now. We have about $16 million available for these community air grants to local community-based organizations. And I have sent more detailed information on the community air grant program to the Air District to share with you all. But I also am available to answer any questions you all may have about the community air grants program or this current cycle 5 that's open for applications.
Brian, just a quick question from Samir here, just on that last part. Could you just a little bit more perhaps for the CAC members on like how much funding per project might be available?
Sure.
A lot of the folks here I know work either directly in a nonprofit or may work with nonprofits, like just a little bit more information so they can, maybe share that information with internally or.
And again, I hope Stephanie has the information, can pass it on so you can all click through it. But just briefly, there's like 3 categories of projects. One is educational projects and has a max award amount of $300,000. There are also technical projects. Some communities have installed like low-cost air sensors to do monitoring projects around it and develop citizen science projects along air quality. Those max out at $500,000. So you can have different categories. And there are also focused project areas with developing local plans and working with communities with capacity building, which also max out at $500,000. So the award amounts we usually see go up to $300K again for educational, and then up to $500,000 for those other 2 possible categories.
Okay, thank you.
That's a problem.
All right, let's move on to item 14, outreach and communications.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair, there may be some questions here by members. Sorry about that. Thanks.
Yeah. Any questions of Modesto? Yes, we have one.
Sorry, let me.
Not quite sure how this works.
Particular interest in the trees program, a second or third time I've heard about it in the Fresno area, and it's a particular interest to me. The agricultural industry plants thousands of acres of trees every year, and I was wondering if the benefit might be similar or equal to, and has that consideration been taken? Really, the question is, what benefit are we looking for from the trees? Thank you.
Maybe I can take that question. It's a great question, and one that comes up from time to time in terms of what net value there may be from the large amounts of orchards, that, because and over time, I think we've all seen transition, some crop transitions, including, for example, I think it's over 1.4 million acres of almond acreage, for example, in the region. What value they may provide in terms of carbon sequestration, kind of life cycle. So I think that is a question probably best directed at CARB, just from an ongoing basis as they look at their work, whether it's a scoping plan for addressing various kind of climate change related mandates or other parts of what they do from the inventory side, the emissions inventory side. It's a complicated question because I think it kind of depends on whether you're looking at carbon and climate change related matters, whether you're looking at, there's like water considerations. There's also, you harvest all of that acreage as well, right? So there's potential benefits, I think, from dust mitigation, perhaps by creating barriers and kind of some soil benefits, soil stability benefits, perhaps. But there's also, well, then you got to go shake those trees and do all the sweeping and pickup and all that. And then we know that there's emissions that are associated with that. So it is a pretty complicated question. So I think depending on your exact level of interest and sort of, if you have some ideas certainly around how that could be best looked at, there are absolutely some benefits to having, for example, orchards and also, quite a bit of emissions impact as well that we work very closely, certainly with agriculture to look at and help to mitigate. And Stephanie even gave one example just earlier about what, the research that has been done to reduce, say, emissions from almond harvest. That is an ongoing effort, partnership effort. So anyway, that's kind of a long way of saying that it's complicated and certainly some benefits, but also some impacts as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from Fresno?
Yes, through the chair. This is Kelly. Brian, you said, did I get it right? 16 million?
Yeah, correct. It's right around 16 million. Yeah.
Okay. And then is there a defined amount that goes to each of the three categories that you brought up?
Oh, there is not. There's just those individual caps per project, but the mix can be, depending on the applications, you could have a lot more educational one year than technical, or the other way around the following. So there isn't like a defined bucket for each type of project.
Okay. And then is it, so you said per year, is each cycle just annual?
It is, so it's just like the other two, or all the funding coming from the state. We're kind of at, I won't say the whim, but just at whatever the budget determines annually. So we plan for the program to run annually, and the projects can last 3. So it's not like you have to create and expend and implement a project in a year. But every year, depending on the legislature, we're awarded a certain amount of money to fund the community air grants. And so this year, for this cycle, it's 16. It's ranged from 5 to 10 in the past. The COVID kind of messed things up where we combined 2 years. So yeah, it always fluctuates, I'd say, between 5 and around 15 per legislative budget cycle.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any questions or comments in Bakersfield? Okay. Public comment?
It's not required on this item. It's a discussion topic, not action. Thank you.
And I am not hitting it today.
That's okay.
Wow. All right. Item 14, outreach and communications report. Jamie.
Hello. We continue to do significant school outreach. We've actually been in schools up and down the valley and will continue for probably another couple of weeks, passing out information, making sure that parents, teachers, students, administrators are aware of our various programs. We kind of officially, but we're still taking and probably through this week, have closed our kids calendar artwork contest entries. We've had quite a few this year, and we'll be reviewing those and picking the winners to put into the 2025 kids calendar, which will be available late December. And then we'll be really pushing hard in January to pass them out for free up and down the valley. We'll make sure you all get some. We're beginning to plan for our winter residential wood smoke reduction outreach. I just spoke a lot about that, so I'm not going to repeat myself. And then I just want to mention too, if you have organizations that you work with, we would love to come out to your event. We do this. I had staff working all over this past weekend. We like being out at events. We have some great materials that we can pass out, some fun little giveaway items, and we would be happy to come out and work at your event. If you want a presentation to a group, anything from a civic service organization to some type of parent group to really any group that you might have that gather together, we'd be happy to come out and give a general kind of air quality 101 presentation where we also talk about our mini grant program. So we are available. You can just reach out to Katrina and she will connect you with me, and we'd be happy to get our team out there.
Thank you. Okay. Unless someone has a comment or a question, we'll move on. Okay, let's move on to item 15. CAC member comments. Anybody in Modesto? Go ahead.
Thank you. I just like to, on behalf of our local Sierra Club group and the San Joaquin Valley Electric Vehicle Association, of which I'm a part, I'd just like to thank and commend the district for their promotion of zero-emission vehicles, including their generous sponsorship and participation in our recent EV Expo in Manteca. Your advocacy and action to enhance the electric charging infrastructure for passenger vehicles and trucks in the Central Valley is also very critical in our efforts to address the climate crisis and improve air quality in our area. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, how about Fresno?
Just through the chair, Samir, I'd like to thank the district for the recent certified air permitting professionals training that went on and the exam that took place. This cycle is over now. And from my personal perspective, it's that type of program which increases the availability of knowledgeable individuals to ensure that as many complete applications are submitted to the air district. And I appreciate your continuing efforts on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis, and for your ongoing support of those types of efforts. Appreciate that too.
I know my contact for this program has been James Herrader. He's been outstanding in getting information out on that.
I'll make sure he hears that. Thank you.
Bakersfield? Okay. I just want to add a comment. You know, if you live in an urban area, in my community, Manteca, they are building gas stations and convenience stores virtually on every corner. And they all include some form of, or some number of charging stations. And I see a lot more electric cars and those ugly pickups in town. So we are definitely on a transition to something other than gasoline powered motors. So that's great. I'm glad to see it's happening. All right. And the last item on the agenda is a volunteer to present report during governing board meetings. I'm not sure what that means.
Let me bring that back, Mr. Chair, to the earlier comment I raised. Our next kind of regularly scheduled meeting. So we have the governing board study session during which I hope to see CAC member participation there. But as far as an official kind of report out, December would be the next opportunity for that. That would be the December 19th board meeting. So the question here is whether or not you, or perhaps, I know Mr. Cunha has also in the past volunteered to regularly attends those meetings as well. If there's a volunteer basically to be there for that meeting to provide the report.
Ah.
This far in advance, yes. So,
Yeah.
I recognize not everybody necessarily schedules this far in advance, but yeah, that's the question.
Okay. Any volunteers?
I would be happy to, and I apologize for the last meeting. Took off to DC and didn't do my responsible obligation to present to the board, but I'd be happy to on December 19th. I know I'm here.
All right. Thank you, Manuel. And we come to adjournment. So I adjourn the meeting. Everybody
Thank you.
enjoy. It's over. It's